Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood in the vast circular chamber that housed the Galactic Council's Scientific Review Board, her footsteps echoing against the obsidian floor as she approached the central podium. The towering crystalline walls around her pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, displaying the rejection notice in 17 different alien languages, scripts, and mathematical formulations. Despite the variety of communication methods, the meaning was universal and unambiguous. Denied, biologically impossible. The weight of representing humanity's first formal contact with galactic civilization pressed heavily on Elena's shoulders. Behind her, through the chamber's transparent dome, she could see the breathtaking vista of Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Federation. Floating cities drifted through crystalline skies, their architecture defying Earth's understanding of physics. Billions of beings from hundreds of worlds lived in perfect harmony here, their civilizations carefully balanced and precisely ordered. "Honorable Council members," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement systems, "I respectfully request reconsideration of Earth's application for membership in the Galactic Federation." The lead counselor, Hierarch Vexenoral, resembled a massive walking tree whose bark appeared to be carved from living jade. Eyes like burning amber coals studied Elena from branches that served as arms, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of millennia. "Human delegate, your planet's supposed biodiversity violates every known law of evolutionary biology that has governed galactic civilization for 10,000 years. A single world simply cannot sustain the variety of life forms your species claims to coexist with." Elena had expected this response. The preliminary reports she'd submitted months ago had described Earth's ecosystem in careful scientific detail. 8.7 million estimated species, complex food webs spanning from microscopic bacteria to 100-ton whales, predators that hunted in packs while others worked alone, herbivores that migrated across continents while others never moved beyond a single tree. To beings whose worlds hosted carefully managed ecosystems of perhaps 50 species maximum, Earth sounded like a biological fairy tale. "According to our most advanced ecological modeling systems," added Counselor Zephyriel, whose form resembled a floating jellyfish constructed entirely of coherent light, "your described ecosystem would collapse within mere solar cycles. Apex predators, herbivores, decomposers, and primary producers in such astronomical numbers? The energy requirements alone would be catastrophic. The competition would drive mass extinctions. The system would devour itself." Elena's jaw tightened as she felt the familiar frustration rising in her chest. 3 months of careful preparation, humanity's greatest opportunity to join the galactic community, and they were being dismissed as either delusional or deliberate fabricators. The other counselors, beings of crystal and gas, metal and living energy, watched with expressions that ranged from polite skepticism to outright amusement. "What if I could provide irrefutable proof?" Elena asked, her voice cutting through the chamber's murmurs. Hierarch Vexenoral's laugh sounded like wind through autumn leaves, ancient and weathered. "Young species often exaggerate their achievements, little human. It is a natural consequence of inexperience with galactic-scale perspective. In 10,000 years of Council history, monitoring millions of worlds across countless star systems, no planet has ever sustained more than 50 distinct macrospecies in long-term ecological stability. Your documents claim millions of species." Elena straightened her shoulders, meeting the ancient being's burning gaze without flinching. "I claim millions because we have millions. Our scientists have cataloged over 1 million species already, and we estimate we've discovered less than 15% of Earth's total biodiversity. Give me 1 month. Let me send samples that will demonstrate the reality of our ecosystem." The chamber fell silent except for the subtle harmonic resonances of the crystalline walls. Council members exchanged what passed for meaningful glances among their various anatomies. Psychic pulses between the energy beings, color shifts in the crystalline entities, pheromone releases from the organic species. Counselor Zephyriel pulsed with what Elena had learned to recognize as condescending amusement. "Very well, young human. We shall grant your request, though the outcome is predetermined by biological law. 1 month. Send us your samples. But understand the consequences of this arrangement. When your evidence proves to be fabrications, artistic interpretations, or simple genetic variations of the same base species presented as false diversity, humanity will be permanently barred from reapplication to the Galactic Federation for 1 full century." Elena's smile was sharp as a blade. "Understood completely, honorable counselors. But when I prove you wrong, when I demonstrate that Earth's impossible ecosystem is not only real but thriving, I want something in return." "Name your terms," Hierarch Vexenoral said, his bark rustling with curiosity. "Full membership in the Galactic Federation. No probationary periods, no restricted access, no gradual integration protocols. If Earth's biodiversity is real, then humanity deserves full recognition as equals in this council." The chamber erupted in translated exclamations of surprise and indignation. No species in galactic history had demanded such terms for their initial membership application. The audacity was unprecedented. But Elena stood firm, knowing that humanity's greatest strength had always been its willingness to bet everything on impossible odds. The deal was struck with the weight of galactic law behind it. Dr. James Mitchell stood in the cavernous space of what had once been Boeing's largest aircraft assembly facility, now hastily converted into humanity's first interstellar biological laboratory. The massive hangar stretched for acres in every direction, filled with the controlled chaos of the most ambitious scientific collection project in human history. 4 months ago, he'd been a simple marine biologist studying coral reef ecosystems off the Florida Keys. Then, first contact had transformed xenobiology from science fiction into humanity's most critical discipline, and James found himself leading Earth's response to the Galactic Council's challenge. The deadline loomed over everything: 23 days to collect, preserve, and transport samples that would prove Earth's biodiversity wasn't just real, but revolutionary. The hangar buzzed with activity as teams of scientists worked around the clock, racing against time to catalog the impossible complexity of their homeworld. "Status report," James called out, his voice carrying across the facility's communication system. Dr. Priya Patel looked up from a series of massive aquarium tanks that had been airlifted in from the Seattle Aquarium. "Marine samples secured and stabilized," she replied, gesturing to the incredible array of life forms swimming, crawling, and floating in the carefully controlled environments. "We've got representatives from 7 major ocean ecosystems: coral reef communities from the Pacific, kelp forest specimens from California, deep-sea thermal vent organisms that survive in temperatures that would cook most known life, Antarctic krill swarms, abyssal zone predators that create their own light, mangrove ecosystem samples, and Arctic ice shelf communities." She paused beside a tank containing what appeared to be glowing jellyfish. "The bioluminescent organisms alone represent more complexity than most alien worlds achieve in their entire biospheres. Wait until the Council sees creatures that manufacture their own light through chemical reactions." Across the hangar, Dr. Marcus Thompson supervised the mammalian collection area, where climate-controlled habitats housed everything from tiny shrews that ate their body weight daily to genetic samples from blue whales whose hearts alone weighed as much as small spacecraft. "Terrestrial mammals ready for transport," he called back. "We've got representatives from every continent and climate zone. The Council wants to see impossible diversity. Wait until they try to explain a platypus, a mammal that lays eggs, produces milk without nipples, has a bill like a duck, a tail like a beaver, and electroreception like a shark." Dr. Rebecca Foster emerged from what the team had dubbed the Arthropod Apocalypse, a section of the hangar devoted entirely to Earth's most successful animal group. "Insects, arachnids, and crustaceans cataloged and preserved," she announced, wiping sweat from her forehead. "The Council thinks 50 species represents impressive biodiversity? I've collected 57 distinct species of beetles from my suburban Denver backyard alone. We're sending them over 400,000 arthropod species, and that's just what we've discovered so far." She gestured to endless rows of specimen containers. "I've got ants that farm fungus, spiders that build underwater air bells, beetles that produce antifreeze proteins, butterflies that migrate thousands of miles using magnetic navigation, and termites that build structures proportionally larger than human skyscrapers. Each one represents evolutionary solutions to environmental challenges that alien civilizations probably can't even imagine." James walked between the collection areas, reviewing manifests on his tablet that represented 4 billion years of evolutionary experimentation compressed into transportable samples. Every major taxonomic group on Earth was represented: mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish, insects, arachnids, mollusks, plants, fungi, bacteria, and archaea. The microbiology team alone had isolated thousands of bacterial species, including extremophiles that thrived in conditions that would destroy most known technology. "Listen up, everyone," James announced, climbing onto a platform where the entire team could see him. "In 3 weeks, these samples will be examined by the most advanced scientific minds in the galaxy. They expect us to fail. They've spent 10,000 years believing that biological complexity is inherently unstable, that ecosystems with more than 50 species are impossible fairy tales." He gestured to the incredible collection surrounding them. "We're not just representing Earth, we're challenging the fundamental assumptions that have shaped galactic civilization for millennia. When they analyze these samples, they're going to discover that their models of life itself are incomplete." The final loading took 18 hours. Shipping containers equipped with life support systems more sophisticated than space stations were loaded onto humanity's first interstellar cargo vessel, a hybrid marvel of human engineering and borrowed alien technology. Each container maintained perfect environmental conditions for its precious cargo: atmospheric composition, temperature, humidity, pressure, and even carefully calibrated gravity fields. As the ship disappeared into the star-studded void, James stood in the empty hangar surrounded by his exhausted team. In his mind, he could already imagine the alien scientists' reactions when they encountered Earth's biological reality: a world where predators hunted in coordinated packs while others stalked alone, where plants could kill and consume animals, where some creatures survived by eating only one specific type of food, in chains of interdependence so complex that removing a single species could reshape entire ecosystems. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth didn't just support life, it had transformed life into an art form of beautiful, terrifying, wonderful chaos. The Galactic Council's central laboratory orbited Nexus Prime like a crystalline moon, its bioanalysis chambers equipped with technology that could decode the quantum signature of individual atoms. For 3 weeks, the galaxy's most brilliant scientific minds had been examining Earth's samples with instruments capable of unraveling the deepest mysteries of existence itself. Yet with each passing day, their confusion had grown exponentially, threatening to shatter fundamental assumptions that had guided galactic civilization for 10 millennia. Chief Scientist Veltar drifted between examination stations with 4 arms working frantically at holographic interfaces, their elongated Centauri physiology allowing them to multitask in ways that would have impressed even human scientists. The bioluminescent patches along their cranium flashed in rapid sequences, a sure sign of extreme agitation among their species. "This makes absolutely no sense," they muttered, manipulating 3-dimensional genetic models that twisted through space like living sculptures. "These organisms share fundamental genetic markers, indicating clear common ancestry. Yet their physiological differences are so extreme they might as well be from different universes entirely." At a nearby station, junior researcher Clixmo's compound eyes reflected thousands of fragmented images as they studied preserved specimens floating in quantum-stable containment fields. Their insectoid mandibles clicked in bewilderment as they gestured to comparative displays. "Look at this impossibility, Chief Scientist. This great white shark creature is a purely aquatic apex predator, weighing several tons and equipped with sensory systems that can detect electrical fields. Yet this brown bat achieves powered flight using wing membranes and echolocation systems more sophisticated than our starship navigation. And this star-nosed mole lives entirely underground with tactile sensory organs that process information faster than quantum computers. Clixmo's voice rose with excitement and confusion. Yet, according to their genetic structure, they're all vertebrates. They share the same basic body plan: internal skeleton, bilateral symmetry, central nervous system. How does a single evolutionary template produce such radical diversity? The examination room buzzed with activity as scientists from 17 different species struggled to reconcile their observations with everything they thought they knew about biology. At one station, a team of crystalline researchers from the Andromeda sector had been studying what Earth scientists had labeled a Venus flytrap for 6 hours, treating it like any other plant specimen. When Dr. Zixal accidentally dropped a protein synthesis pellet near the innocent-looking organism, the plant's modified leaves snapped shut with mechanical precision. The reaction was instantaneous. Half the scientists in the room leaped backward or performed their species' equivalent of startled retreat. Dr. Zixal's crystalline structure rang like a bell, harmonics of shock echoing through the chamber. "Plants that hunt," they whispered, their voice creating melodic resonances in the laboratory's atmosphere. "Sessile organisms that have developed predatory behavior. How does a creature that cannot move develop active hunting strategies? How does something rooted to the ground become a killer?" The examination room buzzed with activity as scientists from 17 different species struggled to reconcile their observations with everything they thought they knew about biology. At one station, a team of crystalline researchers from the Andromeda sector had been studying what Earth scientists had labeled a Venus flytrap for 6 hours, treating it like any other plant specimen. When Dr. Zixal accidentally dropped a protein synthesis pellet near the innocent-looking organism, the plant's modified leaves snapped shut with mechanical precision. The reaction was instantaneous. Half the scientists in the room leaped backward or performed their species' equivalent of startled retreat. Dr. Zixal's crystalline structure rang like a bell, harmonics of shock echoing through the chamber. "Plants that hunt," they whispered, their voice creating melodic resonances in the laboratory's atmosphere. "Sessile organisms that have developed predatory behavior. How does a creature that cannot move develop active hunting strategies? How does something rooted to the ground become a killer?" The impossibilities multiplied at every station. A team of gas-form scientists from the Helix Nebula had been examining Earth's extremophile bacteria, organisms that thrived in conditions that challenged the very definition of habitability. These prokaryotic life forms survive in temperatures that would boil water and melt most of our laboratory equipment, announced lead researcher Quinaxis, their gaseous forms shimmering with disbelief. Yet these others not only survive, but actively reproduce in acidic conditions that would dissolve our analysis tools. They're not just alive in impossible environments, they require them to function. But it was the ecosystem modeling that truly shattered their scientific understanding. When the galaxy's most advanced biocomputers attempted to simulate Earth's ecosystem dynamics, the quantum processors crashed repeatedly, overwhelmed by variables they couldn't process. Too many species, too many interrelationships, too many organisms occupying similar ecological niches without driving each other to extinction through competition. Senior analyst Mordek, a silicon-based entity whose crystalline thought processes had solved ecological puzzles for 3 centuries, stood before a massive holographic display showing Earth's food web relationships. The 3-dimensional model looked less like a scientific diagram and more like abstract art. Thousands of connecting lines representing predator-prey relationships, symbiotic partnerships, competitive interactions, and mutualistic dependencies. According to every model we've developed over 10,000 years of galactic civilization, Mordek announced to the assembled research teams, their harmonic voice carrying undertones of professional crisis, this ecosystem should have collapsed into extinction within a few thousand years of its formation. The energy expenditure alone should be catastrophic. The competition should drive constant mass extinctions. The complexity should create cascading failures that destroy the entire biosphere. Veltar's bioluminescent patches pulsed in rapid, chaotic patterns. Yet the geological evidence is undeniable. This system has been stable for millions of years. Not just stable, thriving. These organisms have survived multiple mass extinction events and actually increased in diversity afterward. The assembled scientists fell silent as the implications sank in. Everything they thought they knew about how life worked, how ecosystems functioned, how evolution operated, all of it was being challenged by samples from a single impossible world. Our models have successfully predicted ecosystem behavior for 10,000 worlds across the galaxy, Veltar continued, their voice carrying the weight of a scientific revolution. Either this Earth operates under completely different biological laws than the rest of the universe, or, prompted Dr. Zyxal, their crystalline structure resonating with anticipation, or we've fundamentally misunderstood how life actually works. The breakthrough came at 3:47 a.m. Nexus Standard Time, in the laboratory's most isolated research bay, from the most unexpected source imaginable, Piprick, a junior researcher who had graduated from the Vegan Science Academy barely 6 months earlier. While the galaxy's most distinguished scientists debated the impossibility of Earth's ecosystem with increasingly frustrated rhetoric, Piprick had been quietly running simulation after simulation, approaching the problem from an angle that challenged the very foundations of galactic biological theory. Their species, the vegans, were methodical to a fault, silicon-based life forms whose thought processes operated with crystalline precision but glacial speed. What they lacked in quick thinking, they compensated for with relentless, systematic analysis. While others had been trying to force Earth's biodiversity into existing models, Piprick had been building entirely new theoretical frameworks. Chief Scientist Veltar, Piprick's harmonic voice carried across the laboratory with unprecedented excitement, their crystalline vocal cords creating resonant frequencies that made nearby equipment hum sympathetically. I believe I have identified the fundamental error in our approach. The morning briefing room fell silent as every scientist in the facility turned their attention to the young researcher. Veltar's 4 arms ceased their constant motion, bioluminescent patches dimming to indicate focused attention. Even the ancient Dr. Zyxal stopped their perpetual harmonic meditation to listen. "Proceed, junior researcher," Veltar said, though their tone suggested they expected another failed hypothesis. Piprick activated the central holographic display, which immediately filled with 2 contrasting ecosystem models spinning side by side like competing visions of reality. For 10,000 years, our civilization has operated under a fundamental assumption that ecological stability emerges from simplicity. Fewer species means fewer variables. Fewer variables means fewer potential points of system failure. This principle has guided the development of every world in the Galactic Federation. The left hologram showed a typical galactic ecosystem, elegant, precise, with clear hierarchical relationships between exactly 47 species. Each organism had a defined role, a specific niche, minimal overlap with competitors. It was beautiful in its mathematical precision, stable as clockwork. But what if we have been fundamentally wrong, Piprick continued, their excitement causing harmonic overtones to ripple through their voice. What if stability doesn't emerge from simplicity, but from complexity itself? The right hologram exploded into a 3-dimensional web of impossible intricacy, Earth's ecosystem rendered in all its chaotic glory. Thousands of species connected by millions of relationships, predator-prey dynamics shifting like living fractals, competitive pressures balanced by cooperative symbioses, energy flowing through pathways so complex they resembled neural networks more than food chains. Senior researcher Mordek's crystalline structure rang with skeptical frequencies. "You're suggesting that chaos breeds stability? That contradicts every principle of systems theory we've developed." Not chaos, Piprick replied, manipulating the hologram to highlight specific relationship patterns. Controlled complexity with emergent stability. Observe, when I introduce environmental pressure to the simple ecosystem model, climate change, resource scarcity, disease, the system has limited response options. Species either adapt quickly or face extinction. The ecosystem becomes brittle. The left hologram flickered as Piprick's simulation applied stressors. Species disappeared in cascading failures, empty niches creating instability, the entire system teetering on the edge of collapse. But Earth's model responds differently, Piprick continued, applying identical stressors to the complex ecosystem. When one species faces pressure, the web of relationships provides multiple adaptive pathways. Other species can shift roles, fill temporary gaps, create new symbioses. The system doesn't just survive disruption, it uses disruption as an opportunity for innovation. The room watched in stunned silence as Earth's ecosystem absorbed catastrophic events that should have destroyed it, then emerged with even greater diversity. Mass extinction events were followed by rapid evolutionary radiation. Climate changes triggered adaptive innovations that strengthened the entire web. Dr. Quinaxis, the gas form scientist, shimmered with what might have been awe. "You're suggesting that redundancy creates resilience?" "More than redundancy," Piprick replied, their harmonic voice building to crescendo. "I've been analyzing these humans specifically. They're not just another species within the ecosystem. They're ecosystem engineers on a scale we've never encountered. They're apex predators, but also cultivators. They modify their environment, but also preserve it. They compete with other species, but also actively protect them from extinction." The implications hit the assembled scientists like a quantum shockwave. Every galactic civilization had developed under the careful assumption that biological complexity was inherently unstable. They'd built their societies around limited, controlled biodiversity, viewing excessive species variety as dangerous chaos that needed to be managed and contained. "Execute long-term projections," ordered Veltar, their bioluminescent patches strobing with patterns indicating extreme cognitive activity. The simulation expanded, running Earth's ecosystem model forward across millennia. What they observed defied everything they thought they knew about biological systems. Earth's complex ecosystem didn't just survive catastrophic events, it actually grew stronger from them. Asteroid impacts triggered evolutionary innovations. Ice ages drove technological development. Volcanic eruptions created new ecological niches that were rapidly filled by adaptive radiation. The system wasn't fragile, it was anti-fragile, gaining strength from the very stresses that should have destroyed it. "By the cosmic void," whispered Dr. Clixmo, their compound eyes reflecting thousands of fragmented images of the impossible simulation. "They've achieved something we thought was theoretically impossible, biological immortality on a planetary scale." Veltar's voice carried across the laboratory with the gravity of historical significance. "Summon Ambassador Rodriguez immediately. We have fundamentally misjudged not just Earth's ecosystem, but the very nature of life itself." Ambassador Elena Rodriguez entered the council chambers through massive doors that had been carved from a single crystal formation older than human civilization. The space beyond defied architectural logic. Walls that curved impossibly upward, gravitational fields that allowed beings to walk on surfaces that should have been ceilings, and atmospheric zones tailored to accommodate the breathing requirements of dozens of different species simultaneously. What struck Elena most powerfully wasn't the chamber's impossible grandeur, but the unprecedented sight before her. Uncertainty written across alien faces that had dismissed Earth with casual arrogance just weeks earlier. The same beings who had treated humanity's biodiversity claims as the fantasies of a primitive species now regarded her with what could only be described as scientific hunger mixed with professional humility. Hierarch Vexenoral's ancient bark showed stress patterns Elena had never seen before, deep grooves and color variations that suggested his millennia-old certainties had been fundamentally shaken. When he spoke, his voice carried none of its previous condescension. Ambassador Rodriguez, we find ourselves in unprecedented circumstances. Our examination of your world's biological samples has disrupted fundamental assumptions that have guided galactic civilization for 10,000 years. Elena took her designated seat, a piece of adaptive furniture that molded itself to human physiology while maintaining diplomatic protocol. She suppressed the smile that threatened to break across her face, though she couldn't entirely hide the satisfaction in her voice. I'm here to answer whatever questions you might have, honorable counselors. Counselor Zephyriel pulsed with agitated patterns of light, their jellyfish-like form contracting and expanding in rhythms that indicated deep cognitive stress. Your samples have shattered our understanding of ecosystem dynamics, Ambassador. We require comprehensive clarification about how your species managed to evolve within such unprecedented biological chaos. Elena raised an eyebrow with practiced diplomatic composure. Chaos? That's an interesting perspective, Counselor. On Earth, we simply call it biodiversity. What seems chaotic to you represents 4 billion years of evolutionary solutions to environmental challenges. Chief Scientist Veltar activated holographic displays that filled the space around them with three-dimensional models of Earth's ecosystems. Their 4 arms moved in complex patterns as they manipulated data streams, bioluminescent patches along their cranium flashing in rapid sequences that indicated maximum cognitive engagement. Ambassador, your world contains predators that employ radically different hunting strategies within the same ecosystem, Veltar began, highlighting specific examples in the hologram. We observe pack hunters like your wolves that coordinate complex group tactics. Yet simultaneously, we find solitary apex predators like your tigers that rely on individual stealth and ambush techniques. Your herbivore populations include massive migratory herds like your wildebeest that move in groups numbering millions, yet also completely territorial species like your orangutans that maintain individual ranges and rarely interact socially. The scientist's voice carried genuine bewilderment. According to every ecological model we've developed, these contradictory survival strategies should result in competitive exclusion. The more efficient strategy should drive out the less efficient. Instead, they appear to coexist indefinitely. How is this possible? Elena leaned back in her adaptive chair, choosing her words carefully. Because different strategies succeed under different circumstances, Chief Scientist. When resources are abundant and territories are large, cooperation and pack hunting provide advantages through shared risk and increased success rates. When resources become scarce or territorial competition intensifies, individual specialization and solitary hunting become more effective. Our ecosystem isn't stable despite its complexity. It's stable because of its complexity. Dr. Zixile's crystalline structure resonated with harmonic frequencies that created an almost musical backdrop to their words. We have identified numerous organisms on your world that appear to serve no discernible ecological function by our analytical standards. This creature you call a giant panda, it consumes exclusively bamboo despite possessing the digestive system of a carnivore. Its reproductive rate is extraordinarily low, its energy expenditure inefficient, and its habitat requirements highly specialized. By every predictive model in our databases, this organism should have been extinct millions of years ago. Elena's smile finally broke through her diplomatic composure. And yet, there they are, sitting in bamboo forests, completely content with their inefficient lifestyle. Evolution doesn't optimize for what we think makes sense. It optimizes for survival in specific environments. Pandas survive because they found an ecological niche that works for them, even if it seems ridiculous to outside observers. But the energy expenditure calculations, began another counselor, are balanced by the fact that bamboo grows abundantly in their habitat and very few other species compete for it as a primary food source, Elena finished smoothly. You're approaching this like engineers trying to optimize a machine, but nature doesn't think like an engineer. Nature thinks like nature. It finds solutions that work, regardless of whether those solutions seem elegant or efficient to intelligent observers. The chamber filled with the harmonic conversations of alien scientists processing information that challenged their most basic assumptions about how life should function. Counselor Zephyriel pulsed with what Elena had learned to recognize as intellectual excitement mixed with professional anxiety. Ambassador Rodriguez, we must make an unprecedented request, Hierarch Vexorinel announced, his ancient voice carrying the weight of galactic history. Would your species be willing to share comprehensive biological data with the Galactic Federation? Not merely samples, but complete ecosystem databases, genetic sequences, behavioral patterns, environmental interactions, evolutionary histories. Elena pretended to consider the request, though humanity's xenobiological team had anticipated and hoped for exactly this moment. That would depend entirely on what the Galactic Federation is prepared to offer in return for such unprecedented access to Earth's biological heritage. Full membership in the Galactic Federation, the counselor replied without hesitation. Immediate access to our scientific archives, established trade networks, and the entire spectrum of our technological databases. Elena stood, extending her hand in the human gesture that had become synonymous with binding agreements throughout known space. And Hierarch Vexorinal's bark creaked with what might have been the first genuine humility he'd expressed in centuries. And a formal apology from the Scientific Review Board for our premature and scientifically inadequate dismissal of your initial application. Elena's smile was radiant as she sealed the agreement. Deal. But I have one additional condition that I believe will prove mutually beneficial. State your terms, Ambassador. We want to dispatch full scientific delegations to your worlds. If we're sharing Earth's biological complexity, we want to understand how your ecosystems achieve their stability. Maybe Earth isn't the anomaly. Maybe you've been limiting yourselves to solutions that feel safe, instead of exploring solutions that could be revolutionary. And Hierarch Vexorinal's bark creaked with what might have been the first genuine humility he'd expressed in centuries. And a formal apology from the Scientific Review Board for our premature and scientifically inadequate dismissal of your initial application. Elena's smile was radiant as she sealed the agreement. Deal. But I have one additional condition that I believe will prove mutually beneficial. State your terms, Ambassador. We want to dispatch full scientific delegations to your worlds. If we're sharing Earth's biological complexity, we want to understand how your ecosystems achieve their stability. Maybe Earth isn't the anomaly. Maybe you've been limiting yourselves to solutions that feel safe, instead of exploring solutions that could be revolutionary. 6 months after humanity's triumphant diplomatic breakthrough, the first joint human-alien research station orbited Earth like a crystalline flower of impossible beauty. The Bio-Integration Hub, as it had been officially designated, represented the most ambitious xenobiological collaboration in galactic history. Its sprawling biolaboratories stretched across multiple gravitational fields, accommodating the diverse physiological needs of researchers from 17 different species, while maintaining the precise environmental controls necessary for studying Earth's complex ecosystems. Dr. James Mitchell floated through the zero-gravity research bays with a sense of wonder that had only intensified over the months of collaboration. The station's artificial gravity could be adjusted section by section, allowing terrestrial researchers to walk normally, while their crystalline colleagues required different gravitational orientations, and the gas-form scientists needed specially contained atmospheric zones. "This is absolutely extraordinary," murmured Chief Scientist Veltar, all 4 arms manipulating holographic controls as they observed a complete rainforest ecosystem contained within a massive terrarium. The Centauri scientist's bioluminescent patches pulsed in patterns James had learned indicated extreme intellectual excitement. These organisms exist in distinct vertical stratification layers, canopy specialists that never descend to ground level, understory communities adapted to filtered light conditions, ground-dwelling species, and even extensive subterranean root networks. It's like observing multiple interconnected worlds existing within a single environmental space. James guided his alien colleague to another observation deck, where massive viewing windows revealed one of Earth's most alien-seeming environments. Wait until you see the deep ocean thermal vents, Veltar, ecosystems that exist in complete darkness, deriving all their energy from chemosynthesis rather than photosynthesis. When we first discovered them in the 1970s, they revolutionized our understanding of where life could exist. They proved that biology could thrive in conditions we'd previously considered absolutely impossible. At another research station, Dr. Piprick, now promoted to senior biodiversity specialist and displaying the confident bearing that came with recognition as one of the galaxy's leading ecological theorists, was practically vibrating with excitement as they examined soil samples through quantum resolution microscopes. Dr. Mitchell, this is beyond extraordinary. This single gram of temperate forest topsoil contains more microbial diversity than we have cataloged across entire star systems. The bacterial communities alone represent evolutionary lineages spanning billions of years. "That's just ordinary dirt from a deciduous forest in Vermont," James replied with the casual tone he'd perfected for delivering mind-blowing information to alien scientists. "If you want to see real microbial diversity, wait until we show you samples from the Amazon rainforest floor, or better yet, the bacterial mats from Yellowstone's hot springs." The cultural exchange was proving every bit as valuable as the scientific collaboration. Human researchers were gaining unprecedented insights into alien approaches to ecosystem management that had achieved remarkable stability through precision biological engineering. The Centauri garden worlds were masterpieces of controlled symbiosis, where every species had been selected and positioned for perfect ecological harmony. The crystalline worlds of the Andromeda sector had achieved extraordinary symbiosis between geological processes and biological systems, creating landscapes that were simultaneously mineral formations and living ecosystems. But the philosophical implications were transforming both sides in ways none of them had anticipated. "You must understand the profound paradigm shift you've created," Dr. Rebecca Foster explained to a gathering of alien scientists in the station's main conference amphitheater. "Humans didn't just evolve within biological chaos. We learned to embrace uncertainty as a fundamental aspect of existence. Our entire civilization is built on the principle that competition and cooperation aren't contradictory forces, but complementary strategies that strengthen the whole system." Dr. Zeichsel, the crystalline scientist whose harmonic thought processes had been studying human psychology for months, resonated with frequencies that indicated deep philosophical contemplation. "This explains the apparent contradictions we observed in human behavior patterns. Your species displays remarkable individualism, members pursuing completely different life strategies and goals, yet simultaneously demonstrates unprecedented collective action when facing shared challenges. We interpreted this as psychological inconsistency." "It's not inconsistency," Foster replied, her voice carrying the enthusiasm of someone sharing a fundamental truth. "It's adaptive flexibility. We learned from our biosphere that diversity of approach strengthens the system's overall resilience. A forest with only one species of tree is vulnerable to any disease that affects that species. A forest with hundreds of tree species can lose several and continue thriving." The research station had evolved beyond its original mandate as a scientific facility. It was becoming a template for an entirely new form of galactic cooperation, where careful hierarchical structures were being supplemented by controlled creative chaos, managed diversity, and adaptive resilience protocols that drew inspiration from Earth's 4-billion-year evolutionary experiment. The aliens were learning to embrace uncertainty as a catalyst for innovation rather than a threat to stability. The humans were discovering the value of thoughtful, systematic approaches to long-term planning and resource management. Together, they were developing hybrid methodologies that neither species could have conceived independently. Dr. Klixmo, the insectoid researcher whose compound eyes could process visual information across 17 different spectral ranges, had become fascinated with Earth's pollination networks. "The interconnections are staggering," they announced during a weekly progress briefing. "Your flowering plants have co-evolved with insect species in relationships so specific that some flowers can only be pollinated by single species of butterflies or bees. Yet the overall network is so robust that the loss of individual relationships doesn't compromise the system." "Redundancy and specialization working together," James observed. "It sounds contradictory, but it's actually the key to Earth's resilience." As the months passed, news of the research station's discoveries spread throughout galactic civilization. Requests for collaboration came from worlds that had maintained isolation for millennia, all eager to explore what controlled biological complexity might offer their societies. And now they wanted to learn how to do the same. The galaxy was beginning to understand that Earth hadn't just survived impossible odds. It had transformed impossibility into inevitability through the patient work of evolutionary creativity spanning geological timescales. And now they wanted to learn how to do the same. 1 year after Earth's first biological samples had departed for the stars, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood before the most significant gathering in galactic history. The Grand Assembly of the Galactic Federation had convened representatives from over 3,000 worlds, their combined civilizations spanning 37 galaxies and encompassing species that had achieved interstellar travel before humans had discovered fire. The massive amphitheater surrounding her could have housed entire cities, its impossible architecture accommodating beings of crystalline energy, gas-form consciousness, and living metal alongside more familiar organic species. Elena no longer stood as a supplicant seeking membership for her species. Today, she represented humanity as the Federation's newest full member, preparing to propose the most radical restructuring of galactic civilization in 10 millennia. The weight of this moment pressed against her shoulders, not the burden of representing Earth, but the responsibility of potentially transforming the entire galaxy's relationship with life itself. "Honorable representatives of the Galactic Federation," Elena began, her voice amplified through translation matrices that converted her words into 17,000 different forms of communication simultaneously. "Earth's integration into our galactic community has revealed something profound about the nature of existence itself. We have learned that stability and chaos are not opposing forces. They are evolutionary partners in the cosmic dance of life." The holographic displays that surrounded the amphitheater erupted with data streams showing the results of the year-long biological exchange program. Worlds that had cautiously introduced controlled biodiversity increases were displaying ecosystem resilience that defied their previous scientific models. Agricultural yields had increased exponentially. Environmental disasters that should have caused widespread ecological collapse had been absorbed and transformed into opportunities for adaptive innovation. Simultaneously, human colonies that had adopted alien conservation techniques were achieving unprecedented harmony with their new environments. The synthesis of Earth's chaotic creativity with galactic precision was producing results that neither approach could have achieved independently. "We propose the Universal Biodiversity Initiative," Elena continued, her voice carrying to the farthest reaches of the assembly, "a galaxy-wide program to systematically increase ecosystem complexity through carefully monitored stages. Each world would receive joint human-alien research teams specializing in adaptive ecosystem management, with implementation timelines tailored to each planet's unique environmental characteristics." Hierarch Vexenorial, whose ancient bark now showed new growth patterns indicating intellectual renewal, leaned forward with interest that would have been impossible a year earlier. "Ambassador Rodriguez, while our preliminary results have been unprecedented, the potential risks of such comprehensive ecosystem modification remain substantial. Risks that are entirely manageable with proper scientific oversight, interrupted Chief Scientist Veltar, who had undergone the most dramatic transformation of any galactic scientist. Their bioluminescent patches now pulsed in patterns that had never existed in their species before, new neural pathways created by their year of studying Earth's biological complexity. Our updated models demonstrate that carefully introduced diversity actually reduces long-term catastrophic risk rather than increasing it. Our updated models demonstrate that carefully introduced diversity actually reduces long-term catastrophic risk rather than increasing it. Dr. James Mitchell, now serving as Earth's Director of Xenobiological Integration, activated holographic displays that filled the amphitheater with Earth's 4-billion-year evolutionary saga. Every catastrophe in Earth's history became a catalyst for unprecedented innovation. Asteroid impacts that should have ended life instead triggered the mammalian radiation that produced intelligence. Ice ages that should have caused extinction instead drove tool development and social cooperation. Even our species exists because our ancestors learned not just to survive uncertainty, but to transform it into opportunity. The visual displays showed Earth's magnificent resilience in vivid detail: mass extinctions followed by explosive diversification, climate catastrophes becoming evolutionary accelerators, environmental pressures triggering innovations that strengthened the entire biosphere rather than weakening it. Dr. Piprick, now honored as the Federation's first Director of Adaptive Ecosystems, stepped forward with the confidence that had replaced their former junior researcher uncertainty. Perhaps most significantly, we have discovered that biological diversity functions as a creativity amplifier. Human technological and cultural innovation appears to be directly correlated with their evolutionary experience of biological chaos. Their ability to generate novel solutions to unprecedented problems stems from their biological heritage of constant adaptation. The implications rippled through the assembly like quantum waves. For 10,000 years, galactic civilization had optimized relentlessly for safety, predictability, and risk minimization. They had achieved remarkable stability and technological advancement, but at the cost of creative stagnation. Human integration had demonstrated what they had unknowingly sacrificed in their pursuit of perfect order. The voting process that followed was unlike anything in Federation history. Rather than the careful deliberations that typically characterized galactic decision-making, the response was immediate and overwhelming. World after world declared their enthusiastic support for the Biodiversity Initiative, with Earth designated as the central hub for galactic ecological research and innovation. As the session concluded, Elena found herself surrounded by representatives from hundreds of worlds, all eager to discuss implementation timelines for their specific ecosystems. But her attention was drawn to a priority message that had just arrived from Earth: a discovery report from the Mariana Trench describing a newly identified hydrothermal vent ecosystem containing 23 previously unknown species, including organisms that survived by metabolizing methane in ways that challenged the fundamental laws of biochemistry. Elena smiled as she imagined the galaxy's reaction when they learned about Earth's latest impossible discovery: a single volcanic vent on the ocean floor containing more biological innovation than most star systems achieved in millions of years of evolution. The Galactic Council had once declared Earth's biosphere impossible. They had been absolutely correct. By every rule they understood, it should have been impossible. But humans had never been particularly interested in accepting limitations, and now neither was the rest of the galaxy. The age of controlled chaos had begun, and the universe would never be the same. As Elena departed the assembly, she carried with her the knowledge that Earth had given the galaxy something far more valuable than membership or technology. They had given them permission to dream of possibilities beyond the boundaries of careful, cautious existence. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when impossible became inevitable.